Joined now by Democratic political analyst Jack O'Donnell and Republican political analyst Carl Calabrese.
Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us. A lot to talk about tonight. Let's just first start with Sean Ryan, maybe what he did right. Scanlon, what he could have done wrong.
Sean Ryan had a good campaign, and obviously he got his vote out. When you look at the councilmatic breakdown, although Scanlon got 77% of the vote in South Buffalo, Ryan was getting anywhere from 64 to 80% in the other councilmatic districts. So for him to win, he understood he had to overcome that South Buffalo bump, and apparently he did. And he also had a good campaign, good commercials, and his commercials using the Palladino issue against Scanlon really drew blood. There's no question from what I'm hearing from my friends on the other side of the aisle that was very effective in bringing down the numbers for Chris Scanlon.
For the past few months, we've known that Chris Scanlon was going to and could show up on a second, third line in November. He had an opportunity tonight during his concession speech, which was very emotional, by the way. And instead of addressing the fact that he's going to fight like heck for his voters over the next 5 months, he got teary-eyed, thanked his supporters, and left the stage. Did he miss an opportunity, Jack?
Well, we don't know what he's going to do, right? I do think we talked about what a loss in politics means. It is shell-shocking, right? Especially for a guy who thought he was going to win. They had some internal polling that gave them some confidence. Did he miss an opportunity? We'll see how that plays out. Again, Sean Ryan did a much better job talking to Democratic primary voters. That's who voted tonight, and that worked. Whether Chris Scanlon has a path remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that path forward. Go ahead, Carl.
Well, that's the first question he's got to ask himself and his advisors in the next couple of days. Is there a path to victory? Did he miss an opportunity tonight? Again, having been on the losing side of a campaign, I'm willing to cut him a little slack tonight. There's plenty of time if he does decide to get back into it to maybe make some opportunities for himself. But it's a tough night, and as I say, I'm willing to cut him a little slack tonight.
The reason I asked that question is because this harkens back to Byron Brown in the last primary that was facing the Queen City voters, and he that night when he lost to India Walton was very strong in saying, "Folks, we're not going anywhere. This campaign's coming back, and we're going to win on a write-in in November," and he did just that. Here's my other question going forward. Where do we go now? Because clearly politics, it creates divisions without question. But here you've got very clear divisions in a campaign and people who are supporting Scanlon versus the campaign and people supporting Ryan. How does Scanlon move forward for the next 5 months and be the acting mayor and work with these other people across the community who are on the other side?
Well, I do think this is a unique confluence of events, right? Being acting mayor, because not only that, but if he doesn't run in November, if there's no change, he will go right back to the council. And so I think you're going to see some interesting dynamics there. That said, people in politics find ways to yell at each other and find ways to get along and build coalitions. That's what gets you to success.
And frankly, Democrats are better at fighting primaries and then coming together afterwards than Republicans are. Republicans don't fight as many primaries as Democrats do because it's a minority party, and you can't be divided as a minority party and hope to win. Democrats have the advantage of having a 7-8 to 1 advantage in registration.
It's a big tank.
Yeah.
It's a big tank.
Oh, it's a big tank. But they can afford to be at each other's throats and then not be real close friends going into the election and still win. Republicans don't have that luxury.
Interesting. And I mean, he could go back and be the Common Council president come November. Maybe be a little bit of a thorn in Sean Ryan's side, but maybe they could work together hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think all of these candidates have the city's best interests at heart, and there are going to be disagreements. There are going to be disagreements within parties, right? We saw a lot of that, but we saw that on policy, too, at the state level about what the future of Buffalo looks like. A new mayor may change that, and he's going to have to find a way to build a coalition, or he won't be mayor very long.
If they see any future at all, they have to do the job that they're in now, whether it be in the council or in the mayor's office. They've got to do the job, and that's what they'll be judged on, whether they run for re-election or for a higher office. So that has a way of putting things in perspective. They'll never be going to each other's house for Thanksgiving dinner, but that doesn't mean they can't work together and move the city.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Please.
A question I want to ask. We just heard Sean Ryan talk about fill the D potholes, you know. He's been running on that campaign.
Fill those deep potholes.
And he's been driving around and talking about all these potholes. I mean, where is the money coming from, right?
Well, one of the things that he was very critical of the city for is that there was some state funding for things like this, in large part driven by people like Sean Ryan in Albany, former Senator Tim Kennedy, now Congressman, when he was chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, created whole funds to help cities, and the city of Buffalo has not been drawing down and using that money. So that's a good place to start, and I think Sean Ryan knows how to get that money.
You know, I thought he should have had a harder edge about what Albany has done to municipalities like Buffalo, because Albany is famous for passing mandates and, you know, getting all the credit for these nice sounding bills, but not giving municipalities a dime to fund them. When I was in town government, we used to have a term for it. We would call it all show and no dough. They get the press conferences, they get to fundraise on it, they get their constituencies happy, and the costs come to property taxpayers at the local level. That may have been something that he could have developed, and if he stays in this race, and he might want to think about developing that theme.
Unfunded mandates, as they were. Those come down all the time from New York State, without question. The question also now is, where do we go with when it comes to Sean Ryan moving forward? You saw a lot of reaching out from Scanlon to the state, especially during this budget season. Does Sean Ryan have an advantage? Should he win in November, having that direct line, that direct link with the state Senate?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, again, a big part of his campaign was about housing, how he had developed programs at the state level to provide that funding. You know, he's got that state experience to know how to do that, to be more creative and find some of those solutions. So as someone who lives in the city of Buffalo and pays taxes, I'm optimistic about that.
You know, Jack knows this. The Senate's a tight-knit group, and when you were a member of it, a former member of it, and you go back, they still call you senator, and it's a good advantage to have coming from that body, and he'll have a lot of receptive ears when he goes to that body and asks for things.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Very insightful. We will be right back.